So today I will be talking about the Shawnees. So I am Jonster Lin-ao from grade 11 and presenting to you guys about the Shawnees. So where did the Shawnees come from? So the Shawnees were actually like believed in legend that they came from a man named Shewa Ani. And Shewa Ani was the son of Opekano, leader of the Powhatan leader. The Powhatan Confederacy was a very well known Indian tribe, and but we will not be focusing about them. And the chief of the Powhatan Confederacy sent his son to the Shenandoah Valley in order to like inhabit the land, make new civilization there, make their own tribe. So this is Opeka Kano, and yeah. So the Shawnees are composed with five different divisions. They're like the Iroquois Confederacy, and the name of these ones were the Piqua, Mekwa Chake, Kispo Gogi, Hatha Wekakela, and Chillicothe. So their beliefs and tradition, like other tribes, the Shawnees believe this great spirit, that's the grandmother and the grandson, and they also believed on the Mochi Monito. It's an evil spirit. They believe that they should not that they should do good things in order not to get punished by the evil spirit. Here's the grandmother and grandson that came from the sky, and we learn about the turtle's back. So and this is the evil spirit, and since evil spirit is not good, they tend to like make sure to stop witchcraft because they know that it can bring curse in their tribe, which can bring lots of trouble, and they believe that every witchcraft is possessed by devil, so evil spirit. So the way of living, the Shawnees are they live in houses called a wigwam. These are like round houses. They are different from teepees because teepees are more like this shape, but these wigwams are more rounder shapes, and they are made of wooden frames. They are like they can get to 8 to 10 feet tall or 10 to 15 feet, depending on the number of family, their sizes, and they are also made with woven mats and sheets of birch bark, or depending if there are lots of buffaloes in the area, they make these wigwams with buffalo hides. So the Shawnees wear different clothes depending on the climate, like summer and winter. So during warm climates, they wear like breech cloths and like they wear lighter clothes. When during cold climates, they actually wear fringed tunics or shirts and leggings. And if they have, sometimes they wear cloaks and robes. And they also wear bandanas, which are very. It's became like um, their trademark of of the Shawnees. So here we have a couple of pictures. So the roles of the Shawnees, so since they're male and female, the male have to do hunting for food, setting the field for agriculture, and they go out for war with different tribes, or even go out war against like the European colonies or settlers. The females have different roles. They actually do the planting. They do the cultivation. It's not the male who is doing the planting the crops and maintaining the crops. It's actually the female. They tend to take care of children, so they would have to raise them, feed them, and of course cooking is the role of the female, which the males get the food and the females would have to cook the food. So actually, Shawnees are actually nomadic people. And this is why their houses are wigwams. They don't create houses. They more likely create tents in order for them to be able to take those tents, build it, and when they have to move, they can dismantle it. So they move from places like Tennessee, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Ohio. And they can be found mostly usually in the east of Tennessee River, and they also can be located in the upper part of Ohio River. And that area usually makes conflict with the Iroquois, and the Iroquois and the Shawnees were not really good. They're not really in a um, good uh, what would you call this word? They're not in good terms. So here we have a map of Tennessee. So they move from different places here, and like they go around and stuff, depending on the climate. If they have to look for food or look for hunting places. So we have the unwanted visitors. So when the European colonies came, there were also like French and the British that started colonizing different parts of America. Then although it caused conflicts with the settlers due to because they were getting driven away from their land, which affected their life, and like because of their they have to look for new hunting places since the European settlers have been colonizing different parts of their land. And it actually began the fur trade, meaning like they get to trade with fur since the European colonies don't have enough clothes for winter. They get to trade with the Shawnees furs like buffalo hides. And this actually made more wars with different tribes because they have to secure a hunting place, which they wanted to make sure so they will be able to um, have enough fur in order to make trade with the European settlers. So they sometimes hunt beavers, deers, stuff like that. The French and Indian War. So the French and Indian War was a 7 year. It was also called the 7 Years' War. It was a war between the French and the British mostly, because like it created conflict between these two nations because of territory, and there were like contesting areas where there were like skirmishes, conflicts within these two nations. So the Shawnees were actually part of the 7 Years' War. They sided with the French during this time, but unfortunately, when the war was about to end, the they switched allies with the British at 1758, which they made a treaty called the Treaty of Easton. So here we go, more pictures. Um, so the treaties with the Shawnees were like there were like we mentioned about the Treaty of Easton, the treaty between the Shawnees and the British. So the Treaty of St. Louis is between William Clark and the Shawnees, which is the part where more settlers were getting more land, were trying to search for more land, and do more adventure, which now they were able to make treaty with the Shawnees. So they were able to cede land from the Shawnees near Cape Girardeau, and the United States paid $11,000 for the land, and they were the Shawnee tribes were able to get a blacksmith shop for 5 years. So it's like a contract saying that we can give you a blacksmith shop so that they will be able to make their and tools, weapons, and other things. So we'll talk about the significant people. First will be Kata Kahasa, or Black Hoof. Black Hoof was really well known. He was the civil chief of the Shawnee Indians. He was very known as a fierce warrior during the Shawnee versus the Anglo-American colonies. So he had to there were conflicts with the American colonists. So he was able to lead the Shawnees, and he believed. But after those wars, he believed that he needed to change his concept about the Americans, because like in order to survive, um, they would have to adapt with the American style in order for them to survive. Cornstalk. Okay, Cornstalk was a he was a very fierce man. He was actually his real name is actually Hokolesqua, which actually means stalk of corn. That's why it's called Cornstalk. And he was a great leader before the Revolutionary War began. And he actually fought against European settlers entering Ohio River. So Ohio River was like more of but their border between the Indians and the Europeans. But there were times that there like Americans which were trying to go through that Ohio River, which made it which made the Shawnees very upset against the Americans. Um, Actually, like Cornstalk was well, he made a treaty with the Americans, but after a few years later, he was actually murdered by American militiamen, and this really caused conflict. It really outraged the um, American Indians and the Virginians. Chesecal was a war chief in the Kispoko division, and he was the mentor of Tecumseh, very well known in American Indian. And since he's a war chief, he is known to be a fearsome warrior. And he fought against American colonies to stop the expansion. But he died on October 1, 1792, when he was mortally wounded. So thank you very much for listening to my presentation about the Shawnees. I hope you get to learn, and please comment and subscribe. Joking.